And we're live! This is Nahabeli from Egypt, and we are virtually connecting with the Digital Pedagogy Lab Institute in Wisconsin. And I'll let the on-site people introduce themselves, and then we'll start talking. Can everybody on the Hangout mute themselves, except for the person who's talking? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, you guys. Lisa and Sarah, introduce yourselves first, and then let everybody else introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lisa, and yeah, I'm an on-site buddy for Digital Pedagogy Lab, and I am in the networks track. So.
Woohoo! And I'm Sarah. I'm another on-site buddy, and I'm in the networks track too.
Woohoo! Hi, I'm Jesse Stommel, and I'm the director of Digital Pedagogy Lab, and also the co-director of Hybrid Pedagogy. And yeah, I'm leading the Praxis track with this fellow.
So I'm Sean Michael Morris, and I'm also the director of Digital Pedagogy Lab and the co-director of Hybrid Pedagogy, and I'm doing the Praxis track with Jesse.
And I'm Bonnie Stewart, hiding behind Sean, and I am leading the network track. Woohoo! Thank you. Good training.
Hi,
And so can I ask the people online to just introduce themselves very quickly? I'll just say who you are in the order that I'm seeing. So AK, do you want to go first? I think Lee, can you mute yourself? Because there's a little bit of...
Yeah, sorry.
Hi everyone, this is AK, or some medtech person from Boston. Nice to meet everyone.
Autumn, do you want to go next?
Hi, Autumn Keynes, Columbus, Ohio.
Janine?
Hey, I'm Janine DeBase, and I'm coming from upstate New York.
JR?
Hey, I'm JR Dingwall from Edmonton, Canada.
Hi, JR.
Lee?
Hey, I'm Lee Bissett, aka Ready Writing, and I'm coming to you from Kentucky.
Hi, Lee.
Nadine? Nadine, you want to go ahead? Is she frozen? Stephanie then.
I'm Stephanie Loomis. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, and Teresa?
Hi, I'm Teresa McKinnon. I'm from the Midlands in the UK. I'm at the University of Warwick.
Okay. Nadine, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hi
Nadine?
everyone, I'm Abul Magdi at the American University in Cairo, and good to be here.
Hi, Nadine.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask the first question to Jesse and Sean and Bonnie about just how the Digital Pedagogy Lab Institute came together in the first place and how it's going so far, and then I'll leave room for everybody else to ask and answer questions.
Cool. Yeah. Well, Digital Pedagogy Lab is actually sort of a long-term goal of mine and Jesse's. We first sort of conceived of the idea in December of 2012, and have been working on it, working on trying to figure out what it was going to be, what it was going to look like, and how we were going to pull it off for the last 4 years or so. Oh, that's okay. Okay. Now I lost track of what I was saying. Yeah, so it comes out of the work that we've done with hybrid pedagogy around critical digital pedagogy. It was our intention to create some sort of conference-y, sort of institute-y kind of situation where people would be able to gather and talk at length about critical digital pedagogy in a variety of ways. And that's exactly what we're doing. And right now we're at day 3, about almost to the end of the day. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say something briefly, and you may ask more about this, Maha, but the Praxis track specifically that Sean and I are running is really sort of focused on thinking about the intersections between philosophy and practice, and really thinking about the discussion that we had today. For example, Sean and I have given a presentation called If Freire Made a MOOC, thinking about if Paulo Freire made a MOOC, and what that would look like. Well, today we had a discussion which is really a thought experiment, which was if bell hooks made a learning management system. So that sort of speaks to the kind of things, the kind of juxtapositions that we're getting at here.
And I kind of just got to come along for the ride because I've been working with Jesse and Sean on and off and in different places since December of 2012, I guess, around that same time. And last fall, I work at the University of Prince Edward Island, and I ended up in a conversation with my dean and my partner and another friend who works on campus about, you know, a number of us do digitally networked types of things, and is there some way that we can try to make this come together? And I said, you know what, I think rather than trying to do it independently, my guess is that there's some cool stuff going on. Let me ask Jesse and Sean. And they said, hey, you know, actually, we have this thing. So that brought me here. I'm actually here partly kind of with my institution, and so we may even talk about trying to do a Digital Pedagogy Lab at UPEI at some point next summer or in the future.
And University of Prince Edward Island is one of the sponsors of Digital Pedagogy Lab, along with the University of Wisconsin at Madison and in Canvas, Instructure's Canvas.
By the way, Bonnie started this whole who made a MOOC thing. She did a Foucault. What if Foucault gave a MOOC? Yeah. That was like maybe 2 years ago. I think she started this whole thing.
And it was actually part of MOOC.
It was part of MOOC.
Oh, was it?
So I think
but you're still the one who did it.
We actually all have the same brain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember when Jesse and I would be on the Hangouts for the ET4 online, and we'd be saying the same thing at the same time. It's kind of crazy. Okay, so I think Autumn wants to ask something or say something. Go ahead, Autumn.
Okay, hi everyone. I have a question about like the format of the conference. Like I keep calling it a conference, even though you guys are calling it an institute. And after our hangout with Bonnie yesterday, I really got the impression that it's much more active than a conference. But then I was like, well, maybe that's just Bonnie's track. But I didn't know. Could you guys tell us a little bit about the different tracks and about kind of how it's different than a normal conference?
I think that the reason we call it an institute, well, we actually have two words, Digital Pedagogy Lab Summer Institute. So we've got two words there. One is lab, the other is institute. And both of those words to me have slightly different connotations. Institute to me suggests something you're going to have a start point and you're going to have an end point, and you're going to actually move somewhere from the beginning to the end. And that's a key piece. That's not usually how we think of a conference. We think of a conference as a disparate group of sessions that may be related, but it doesn't necessarily have a narrative or a story that it tells. So that's one piece, is that it has this narrative or story. The other piece is thinking about it as a lab, is that it's a testing ground. It's as much a place for us to teach and for us to learn as it is a place for us to experiment. And not for us to experiment on the learners here, but for us all to experiment together and to learn from those experiments. So even this virtually connecting becomes a part of the lab, in the sense that this is a space where we're testing the theories and the various practices we're talking about throughout the Institute.
And I would add that one of the distinctions really between this and a conference is that generally in conferences you apply to present, right? You submit your abstract, and then it's basically a number of conference papers that can be disparate, whereas this is more, I think of it more, I teach in the Faculty of Education, and so it's more of an education model, like a one-week summer course, except that what we've tried to do, rather than make it a let us deliver information or tools to you, is a participatory experience, because we're trying to model the pedagogy that we're talking about.
Yeah, there's a way in which the, you know, at a conference, you maybe work for 20 minutes when you're presenting and maybe answering questions and that sort of thing. Here, everyone's kind of working all week. They're sort of presenting constantly in a certain way, facilitating the groups together, running unconferences, which is what's going on back there, and really just everyone's participating in doing the work that we're involved in here.
And this is a great example. We've actually got a session happening, and yet all of the teachers are not in that session. We're here talking to all of you, but we can hear it in the background. It continues without us.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are people talking about in the unconference? Because we missed the part where you guys were choosing, who would do what.
4 tracks. 4 sessions at the moment. So the first hour that's happening, there's one on sort of how to support faculty, particularly resistant faculty, contingent faculty, rather than that sort of narrative of trying to drag people online and show them what's good about it, the conversation is turning that narrative on its head, and what do we actually offer faculty? So people are looking at that and thinking about ways to encourage and engage faculty. There are some folks here who are instructional designers, and so their work is not so much necessarily solely with their own pedagogy, but in using their pedagogy to support a pedagogy for other people, right? There's a Twitter track, networking on Twitter. What were the other two?
The other two are, one is about assignment design and thinking about an assignment that grows over the course of a term or even from one term to the next. So thinking about how to create a term. Many people call it scaffolding, although I don't love the term scaffolding because I think of things that emerge rather than are scaffolded in advance. But thinking about something that evolves, an assignment that evolves from one iteration to another. And then the last group is talking about creative approaches to assessment.
And then the next hour, there's going to be something on career pedagogies, something on
building community and online courses, and then a few other sessions.
I can only remember the ones I was going to.
So the question that came up as I was listening to your explanation of the Institute Lab, or Lab Institute, is how does this contrast to an unconference? So with colleagues of mine, we've run a few unconferences locally for the local EDUCAUSE affiliate. So one of the big challenges running the unconference was, okay, who's going to come the day of, and how do we help support those individuals, not scaffold, but find their way to run these unconference sessions. So is the lab a little more structured than an unconference, and there are unconference components to it? Is it a completely separate animal? How does it contrast?
Yeah, so it is different from a regular unconference. The unconference that we're doing today is like an actual unconference, although we're doing it really, really fast. They've got like an hour and a half or something to do 2 sessions in an unconference. But the course, I mean, the institute is actually structured. Each instructor in their different tracks developed a sort of curriculum. That doesn't keep it from being participant driven though, because we try to keep a lot of space in that curriculum for flexibility for participants to be able to say, hey, I'm really interested in doing this, I'm interested in doing this. We do allow for time for them to work on individual projects that they want to be able to leave here with. So there's time for that, but then there's also sort of a slightly more directed instruction without there ever being the sort of like, here's all this information and you're gonna sit there and listen, and we don't really do it that way here. So.
Well, to be honest, this is no different than what I do in all of my classes, whether they're on ground, online. This is essentially the pedagogy I use. It's a very peer-driven pedagogy, but nonetheless a peer-driven pedagogy that has a leader. And that leader is important. The teacher is important to sort of help create the stage, set the stage, and create the space, and then advocate for the students inside that space.
Yep.
I noticed that the two fellows, Lisa and Sarah, who were here, I was watching one of the Hangouts that you did last night or something that you had tweeted, and you were talking about what we were doing in Networks track as kind of framing but not filling the space. Mm-hmm. And I liked that. I actually do scaffolding overtly because I'm actually dealing with the concept that some of the people in my track may use networks and some do not use networks at all. Like by networks, I mean online, socially networked digital spaces. And so I wanted to actually both frame and give conceptual tools for understanding what those were, and then pull back, figure out what people wanted to do. There's many, many different things, and then that becomes peer-driven and emergent. But there are spaces where I'm actually giving stuff, and then spaces where I'm pulling back, and spaces where I'm just kind of reflecting the structure of what we're seeing and tying that to network concepts. So it's a whole mix.
Okay. Yeah, so here's my question. You're all like 4 different tracks, 4 kind of distinct groups. Is that what I'm getting?
There's
three.
Oh, three. Okay. I was trying to keep track on Twitter, but what happens when you follow it on Twitter is that like no one mentions what track they're in, so they're sort of like all like being woven together in like this kind of like crazy, complex, messy, and kind of productive way. And it's sort of really cool if you're following it from afar because of that weaving. And I guess my question is, so is that happening also there, like maybe during separate conversations or something? Like where is that intersection of the track happening, like in real life or whatever we're calling where you are?
Yes, it's happening right now, right? Because the intention with the unconference was to make sure that people who are registered in different tracks, because we're mostly with our track for a large portion of the day. And so while we are doing some connecting online outside of that, it's still not, it doesn't really break down the walls completely. And so the unconference is intended to give people a chance to cross-pollinate in those environments. And then we are using the digital tools to some extent for that as well.
And then I'll also add that we have keynotes and that those are also a space of gathering, as well as meals. I'm a really big proponent of when you do an event like this, you have meals on site because people connect and communicate and build community over food. Doesn't necessarily mean they have to stay for the food here, but essentially that's where we develop, that's where family relationships develop, and to me that's a really key component.
One of the things, we actually made the decision to use the different tracks are using different hashtags to a certain extent, but it's always a double hashtag. So we made the choice to use hashtag DigPed for a couple of different reasons. One, because we wanted basically everyone here to be interacting with everyone here. So we wanted to be able to sort of listen in on the other tracks that were going on. And if everyone was using a different hashtag, like you do sometimes at a conference or a different institute, we wouldn't be able to listen in on each other. The other reason we chose it was because Jesse and I, through Hybrid Pedagogy, have been developing a really pretty robust community around that hashtag over the last 4 years, and we wanted them to be involved as well, as much as possible, to make this conference or this institute as permeable as it could be to our audience online.
It sounds too like there might be some community forming over coffee. If I counted how many tweets had either the desire for coffee, pictures of coffee, or it sounds like you're all just like, oh my gosh, let's stand around and drink coffee and talk. Right? So you're a well caffeinated group. Okay, I think Stephanie, I think you're next. I'm going to mute myself.
And I'm going to unmute myself, right? Okay, Jesse, you said something about using this in your regular classrooms. As I'm in the chat box and I'm listening, I'm in the chat box, it's like the unclassroom, right? Can you expand on that just a little bit? Because I'm writing right now, I'm writing curriculum for high school classrooms, and this is kind of what I do, but it sounds like you already have a foundation for taking that on.
Well, for example, a few years ago when I was teaching at Georgia Tech, I taught 3 sections of a multimodal composition course, and I had each of the courses making short films. And so they were making the films and then creating all of the ancillaries for the films. So essentially they were writing in all kinds of different genres, press releases, DVD dust jackets, et cetera, et cetera. But the sort of key component is that each class was collaborating as a group of 25, and then together the 3 classes who were separated by physical walls organized a film festival. And so that idea of that creating this space inside of each classroom that is a group and a cohort, but then having that cohort connect to the other cohorts, and then they share their films at a film festival with people on the broader campus. So this idea that education starts from a core or a center and ripples out from that center in these various different concentric circles.
That is the coolest thing I have ever heard. Do they still have that stuff at Georgia Tech somewhere?
Yeah, I still have a lot of the materials. If you Google maybe zombie class, you can find some of it. But I'm happy to share that with you.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Well, I do Intro to Composition and I do American Lit, so this is a perfect fit.
Google my class and you'll find a YouTube video where my students talk about the process.
Okay, I'll do that. Thanks.
Okay, I'm guessing you can hear me now. Great. Okay. No, it's really exciting to see you guys and to hear what you've just described, because it's very much similar. Seen my avatar on Twitter, the Ammonite. That's very much the vision of language that I use. Language learning is specifically my context. And we run virtual exchanges and have done for some years, and using computer-mediated communication. What I've been working on just recently with a colleague from the Open University is looking at badging the CPD skills of staff as they get used to using computer-mediated communication to connect their classrooms and engage in online intercultural exchange. So our biggest experience with that is England and France, where we have about 1,000 students every year who do that, and we're rolling that out to other languages as well. So it's really good to know that you're there and you're doing this and you've got this wealth of connections. So how do I'm also on the Eurocall special interest group on exactly this for language teachers. And how do I plug these guys into you guys, and how do I make sure that they're coming across these networks?
You.
Oh. Well, I'll just say briefly that you can go to the Hybrid Pedagogy site, hybridpedagogy.com, and we've we've been trying to connect. Essentially, we've been creating these kinds of events for the last 3 years. Really, we think of Hybrid Pedagogy not as a journal, but as a school. And so we've got DigPed chats, monthly DigPed chats. We've also done various open courses. We have some on the Digital Pedagogy Lab site. We have created some fully online courses, and then we also have the Institute. So there's a bunch of different things. There's also just a lot of stuff to read on the Hybrid Pedagogy site. And so to me, I'd start there and start connecting with the authors that are writing for the pieces, and then there's a community. There's an entire sort of community living there.
And I would add too, if people are using Twitter, that a lot of folks at the conference are using it fairly actively, so the hashtags are fairly robust, and there's interesting content there, but there's also a great way to access the people who are in those conversations. And really the only way to make any of this live outside of events is if we kind of all engage on shared platforms and begin to start conversations with each other. So encourage those people to find the hashtag, look in the hashtag, follow people, talk to people.
Yeah, that's very much what I'm engaged in doing and have been for quite some time. But you mentioned earlier the idea of turning the CPD on its head, and that really jumped out at me, because I've been very much working from the other direction in terms of saying, well, come and try a little bit of this, or within this course here's a Twitter stream, here's a thing link, here are some things to explore. You don't have to do everything all at once, try some things out, and that is having some success. But it has some success with those who are looking to do something like that, and there's a big bridging. What you described just earlier, I'm very familiar with.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're ever going to get everybody doing the things that we do. That's one of the big challenges, I think, with actually, and I work specifically with networks, right? But when we think about higher ed, we have often still an institutional model in our mind that is hierarchical and everyone does the thing. And when we think about the personalization and networks that digital technologies make available, everybody is not going to do the thing, at least at this. And I think that there's probably good in that. As long as we're mindful of the unequal distribution, but if people are making choices and we are doing the best that we can to make sure that those are informed choices. So that we try to offer, experiential opportunities for them to get a sense of what they're saying yes or no to. But if they're still saying no, they are saying no, and that has to be something that we respect. We're not going to get everybody acting like us.
Yeah, and it's really not conversion rhetoric. What it is creating a conversation and welcoming and inviting people into that conversation, but also encouraging them to leave when they need to. and to respect themselves and their own pedagogies. I hear a hum in the other room that's calling to us, so we might have time for one more brief question.
That's shouting.
Yeah, I've never really been.
Actually, so it might be very brief.
Well, yeah, because I'm always brief. That's like my strength right there. You guys know that about me. No, I just had a not so quick question about. I'm really encouraged to hear that there are instructional designers there, because this has often been one of the disconnects that I've had, where faculty developers, instructional designers often don't go to these kinds of institutes or labs or whatever we want to call them. And so what has that experience been like to have this mixture of faculty and instructional designers and coming at these issues? And I know it's always been also, I don't know if there's any librarians there too, that this combination is always, the institutes have always been really interesting to me, because you do get that combination of graduate students, faculty, librarians, various other quote-unquote service people,
Yeah,
in this case instructional designers too.
So there's someone here that's a coordinator for Planned Parenthood, and when I like that, to me, the more outliers that we get into this conversation, I think the more rich the conversation is, and so I think that that's really key. And the conversation, I mean, that's essentially that's why we founded Hybrid Pedagogy. There were people having conversations in different rooms, and we wanted to gather them together into a common space where we could talk across those kind of divides.
And what's interesting is actually with all these different folks in the room, librarians, instructional designers, and teachers, and trainers, you couldn't tell who's who. Like everyone, the basic concerns around pedagogy and the use of the digital in education are this. I mean, really, they're sort of the same. Whether they're teaching or in a classroom, or they're teaching in a library, or they're teaching online or on ground, like everyone has a similar, like there's an undercurrent in terms of the concerns that everyone's working with, and I think that's really important. I think that what we're finding is that these divisions that hybrid pedagogy sort of tried to break down by putting everyone in conversation with each other, really they're not real. Like when you put everyone in the same room together, they're all just talking, and they all share a common universe, basically, and it's pretty fantastic.
Can I add a counterpoint to that? It's not exactly a disagreement. In my group, what I'm finding is that because we're talking about practices and the way that people actually engage with pedagogy and the identity that they engage from, I am seeing at the same time different practices that each of those groups bring up that are really, really significant, resonant, and relevant to each other. So having the different groups speaking from the place where they're approaching pedagogy, whether it is, again, their pedagogy or trying to work to foster a more digitally grounded pedagogy in someone else, and make things available. They're different pieces, and it was really, really great, I think, for the faculty in the group to hear from instructional designers, for the instructional designers to have faculty in the room, and for the librarians who often have a whole other kind of toolkit of practices that they're bringing in perspectives to share that with the rest of the group. So I really liked the fact that we were that diverse.
So I'm going to zip
Thanks
off.
so much, you guys. I know you have to run. Thank you so much. I don't know if Lisa and Sarah are even there, but if the on-site people have to go, we can continue the conversation online. So thank you so much. Bye. Have a great 2 days left. Take care. And I also wanted to let people know that tomorrow morning we have a surprise hangout with Adeline Co. during breakfast at Wisconsin. And that's going to be facilitated by Alan Levine virtually, and Andrea Wren on site. Lisa and Sarah, did you guys away from the unconference altogether, or were you able to go and find out what was going on?
No, we were actually a little bit late to the unconference because we had kind of a time zone issue. We just didn't know when it was going to start. Yes.
And we here made it on time, and we're on like 4 different time zones.
Yeah, you guys were
online.
Us not so much. I think we might a couple people that did want to connect with you guys. But could we do like maybe just a couple minutes and then we'll come back, or are you guys good with that? Or
Yeah, stay online. Stay online. We'll chat among ourselves until other people come in. Is that good?
That sounds
Yeah,
good.
just keep the computer on and mute it until
Okay.
your laptop or iPad or whatever. Just mute it and then come back later.
Okay.
This is cool. What's really special about the Digital Pedagogy Institute, out of all the conferences that we've done this at, is that the people on site are excited to meet us, and they're like right there with each other, and they make the time to come and talk to us. This is just like everybody's nodding, right? It's just I'm amazed because the thing is, there's a buzz going on at the conference, and we over here are just like feeling part of it, even though we're not in there, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
Conference days.
Yeah.
Part of it.
Yeah, you're part of it too. All right, so we're probably gonna do a couple minutes and then.
Yeah, zip off and come back. Zip off and come back. Sure. Did you guys see, like, one of the other nice things about this conference is that they're tweeting out the Google Docs that they're working on. So, like, in Adeline's session and in Jesse and Sean's session, and I feel like I jump in and look at them, and I feel like I want to put comments and participate. And I didn't get a chance to ask them if I could do that. So I decided to be polite.
I saw a few of those this morning as well. I was like, oh, I really want to put my nose in there and see what's going on, and I just haven't had a chance. I hope somebody at the conference is maybe going to collect and say, here are all of the Google Docs kind of in one space so that I don't have to sift through 14,000 tweets or something.
And I think Lee had a suggestion about that too. Lee, what were you saying? You were saying an archive of the tweets, or?
You'd think I'd know how to do this by now. Yeah, no, it was just if Jesse's already set up a Tags Explorer, then it just ends up archiving the tweets in a Google Doc, and it makes it actually pretty easy to search and all of that kind of stuff. And then it'll automatically look at the networks. Actually, it'll generate network visualizations. If you're interested and don't know about it, if you just Google Tags Explorer, like you said, and then it's actually pretty simple to use and set up. You have to set it up once, and it's a little complicated. But once you've set it up the one time, then like I'm basically become the unofficial Twitter keeper for like all the conferences. I don't go to conferences, and I'll be like, I set up an archive for you guys. Here you go, because I want to keep them. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting too, because I just worked with Jesse 2 weeks ago, God, it feels like a year ago now, on the Humanities Institute for Learning and Technology, where we did a week-long workshop, and it was more like a workshop in digital pedagogy, and we had also created these Google Docs, and we invited people to participate, and we actually had people from outside. We did a spontaneous poem, right, a collective spontaneous poem, and we got 50 people in the document contributing to the poem in that sort of way. But then other things where we made this timeline, this geographic timeline, we opened it up and said, okay, anyone can participate if they want to, and then no one did. They're just like, no. It's, it's really weird what people remotely, and this is an interesting question, what people remotely are willing to participate and contribute to versus the things like they'll participate on Twitter, they'll participate on like big sort of chaotic things, but things that almost look structured and formal, people are like, oh no, I don't want it. That I might ruin it or something. They think maybe we're all just too good students in a certain way that we don't want to infuse chaos or anything like that, even though we want to jump in. There's and it is an interesting question, right? What's holding us back from participating in those sorts of things?
Can I just comment on something I think is really cool? So somebody, Greg McVeary, is watching this and already answered my question about finding a place for all these documents. I've never actually had that happen before, and it's just really exciting.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that.
What
was Greg saying?
About being able to find the Google Docs after. So I had said I'm really interested in being able to dig all those out after. So my phone just lights up, and Greg's right there. You can easily search the tags using just using your keywords. So
yeah, Greg is basically live tweeting this Hangout.
That's cool. I've used tags came up a couple of days ago in one of the Hangouts as well. So I think Bonnie's group, the network people, were talking about it, and I've used it with my class, and the students really like looking at it. They don't know the part where you can actually go in and see the tweets and so on, but they like seeing the connections and who's doing what and so on. It helps them like get up because when you're tweeting you can't see what everybody else is doing, but it helps them take a look. We said we were going to try not to talk about Twitter versus zombies, but that's when I was using it, when Janine and JR and I and a few other people were working on that game, Twitter game. And Nadine also helped my students learn to use Twitter. So, hey, do we have someone on site? Is this Anne? Lisa, you need to unmute so we can hear you guys.
Oh, hi. Okay, can you hear me now?
Hey. Yes.
Hi, I'm Cecilia. This is Cecilia.
Hi. Hi, Cecilia. Hello. Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you? How are you all?
Good. Which track are you on, Lisa? Which track are you on, Cecilia?
Networks.
Networks. That everybody's on the networks track. This is very funny.
Yes, I know. We're kind of pulling our friends apparently.
Are there more people? Are there more people in that track? I know there are 29 people. Are the other tracks smaller?
I think the other tracks are probably about the same. I would guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so tell us what you like about the event, Cecilia, and what have you been doing?
Well, the content, how Bonnie approaches it, is that the discussion has been very fruitful and very useful for me to think about what networks are, how it intersects with pedagogy, how it affects with how we approach pedagogy, and I'm an instructional designer, and some of the exercises that Bonnie has been doing is I'm going to steal them. I'm going to steal them and take it back and to use it, and to teach other people how network works back in my institution.
Which institution is that? I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourself because I just know you from Twitter, but everybody watching doesn't know you. So,
okay.
Is there an instructional?
I'm at University of Chicago. My official title is Academic Technology Analyst. So what I do is I teach faculty how to use tools better and to help promote learning in the classes. And I also help in MOOC productions.
Awesome. Nadine and I are working on first MOOCs for our institution, so I'm going to get back to you about that.
Okay,
I was picking
cool.
Jesse's brain about it earlier as well. So which platform are you using for your MOOCs in your institution?
We have courses in both edX and Coursera.
Okay, that's cool. Somebody on the Twitter chat was asking something. Lee, do you want to ask that out loud?
I don't know if anybody would be able to answer the question who's there, but I was just wondering what the gender breakdown was for the participants in at the Lab Institute.
At the Lab Institute?
Oh, yeah. Or what are, it's just because it's so many names. So
I would guess it's probably, would you say two-thirds in the whole probably 2/3 women, 1/3 men.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's definitely more women, I would say, than men, but I don't think it's by a tremendous amount. But, yeah.
No, that's just interesting because it's something Jesse actually tweeted it out during our own institute, was that it was a digital humanities institute and the majority of the participants were men, but our particular one on digital pedagogy was like overwhelmingly, there were 2-3 guys in the class of, it wasn't a huge class, however, how many were we? But it was, it was more than 2/3. It was like 3/4, given that. So it's a question that he tweeted out, and I was researching it again, which is why I just thought of it to ask, was he asked the question, is pedagogy gendered? In that sort of way. And so it's just that sort of just came to me because we've had, a lot of the people who have come in to talk have been women. Most of the people here on the panel, that you're talking to from distance are women. So it just kind of made me think of that, and just, to think and ask, and to give more food for thought to think about that. It's something that I've been trying to work through and work on a lot around that gendered nature. Particularly, again, I work in faculty development, so kind of like instructional design. In a lot of ways, and finding increasingly that that's very much gendered as well, or getting to be increasingly, it seems, gendered.
And we think that the virtually connecting thing is a little bit gendered too. So the only virtual buddy we've ever had is AK over here, and tomorrow it's going to be Alan Levine, but usually the on-site buddies are women. Like, we've never actually asked a man, and no man has volunteered except for one. And it still hasn't happened yet, so we don't know if he's going to be good at it. So, but yeah, it's really interesting. I'm trying to imagine like any men that I know that I could easily imagine doing it, and it's just.
Yeah, that's an interesting, a whole interesting dynamic is the gendered virtually connect. But yeah, I mean, it's not really, but it kind of could be.
So I have
but maybe the one of. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. So there's something that I was wondering about with that, and I don't know if anybody maybe has anything to say about this, but I was looking at CUPA data the other day. Does anybody know what CUPA data is?
CUPA data, no.
I think it's just here in the U.S., but it's basically HR data on higher education, and so they give like salary ranges. And so they have two positions, right? There's a position that comes out of IT that's like a head of academic computing, and then there's another position that comes out of like a teaching and learning center that's more of like a manager of academic technologies. But those sound like very similar types of thing. It just depends on if it's in IT or if it's in a teaching and learning center. And so, again, going back to Stephanie's point about things being gendered, like usually when I work with IT, they're usually a lot of men. And whenever I work with people in teaching and learning centers, mostly I feel like they're women. That's just my own perception. Maybe I'm wrong on all of that, but that's my perception. The difference in the marginal or the average salaries between those two positions was $20,000. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I don't know if anybody has ever seen that before. Maybe it has anything to say about that. I'll see if I can find it.
That sounds really bad. That sounds really bad. But our institution is really funny because a big chunk of our IT people and our Center for Learning and Teaching are on the same floor in the same building, and we're like open space onto each other. And they're mostly women on both sides. Actually, the CIO and the head of the academic technologies and all that are women. Our boss, that's director of the Center for Learning and Teaching, is a woman. Most of us are women. So we've got quite a high number of females in both areas, actually. But I can also see what you mean.
And I do think that that's only U.S. data. So.
Well, I think IT tends to pay better because there are a lot of programmers, and you have to pay that much to get someone to be in IT. In terms of my own institute, for my position, the number of people in my position, we are luckily just split half and half. There are two men, two females. The head of the Teaching and Learning Center was all female. Now it just with people leaving and someone just retired, is now all male. It's kind of just within 1 year it just switched.
Wow, all the way, changing.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting how the working relationship changed.
So you're saying the relationship changed when that change of leadership happened?
How you relate with a person and how they want things done, how they listen to ideas changed. Is that?
Yeah. That was well said.
That makes sense. I actually have to go in a couple of minutes, but if anybody else wants to say anything else before we go.
One one thing to ponder as I was listening to this, and one of the things I heard in a MOOC today of all places on reviving dead languages. I'm actually wondering what the network effect is for the people that start something like this. So what effect does the network of the originators have on the organization? Even once those individuals may have left the picture. So let's say Reconnecting was started by Maha and Rebecca. Um, their network may have influenced a little bit the buddies that are coming either on site or off site. So people that you knew came in, people that you didn't know may have not come in as easily. Not because you didn't want them to come in, but maybe they didn't feel as comfortable coming into the situation. Whereas we have developed a relationship of trust, and even though we've never met face to face, we have a relationship of trust that we feel that we'll come into this live session and broadcast ourselves and record ourselves for posterity. So I'm wondering what the network effect is here and how that comes out in waves and affects how different people come into this, or any type of endeavor for that matter, be it instructional design departments, IT departments, libraries, and so on.
It was hard to hear the question. Can you repeat?
Yeah, I think AK, you can clarify if this is what you were thinking, but it sounded like you were asking, what effect does a person's existing network have when they start something larger? So are the people in their existing network more likely to immediately join up, making it a little bit harder for new people to join, or is it kind of a fluid thing? Is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, people in that network or people who have similar qualities and characteristics as the people starting it and people in that network.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Therefore, Maha and Rebecca started it, and now suddenly we have a high percentage of women and people that are, connected with them joining. Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I don't really have a great answer, but I think that because, you want to support the person, and networks are so built on relationships, I think that there's always that natural bleed over. The first people that are going to support you and be your cheerleaders are the people that are immediately in your network. But I mean, I think that networks are porous enough too that when people hear about what you're doing through other people, like I heard about what Maha and Rebecca were doing just through Twitter. I might have even heard about it through you, but I don't know. But I mean, when I heard about that, then I joined in. And so, I think in the first couple iterations, it's your close people, but then I think it does take off quite a bit. And I mean, now I know Sarah and I are bringing in people that, are probably going to be interested in being buddies in the future. And so that's the great thing, is that it can kind of grow organically. So, yeah.
I think we're about to put out a call for buddies, anybody who wants to buddy in the future, even if they don't know us. Hopefully, as we expand, the number of people in their own networks will take us somewhere beyond. Like maybe we'll find one person who's like very, very loosely connected to one of us, but really connected to a group of other people, and it'll take off. I hope. But yeah, I think like whenever we've done one of these, there's only been ever one or two people that I don't know at all who would join. Like I ask everybody, like if someone retweets me announcing a Hangout and I've never heard of them before, I'll ask them if they want to join, because I think they're probably a bit shy to ask directly, but I try. But actually, during the Digital Pedagogy Lab, because most of the people following the hashtag are people who know me anyway, so that kind of gets difficult. So, but I mean, Cecilia, I don't know Cecilia very well, for example, right? I know you from Twitter, but we're not like best buddies or anything. So I'm really happy that you came in to see us.
Yeah. And let's like at first I didn't know who you are, and then it's like, oh hey, I think Bonnie mentioned you, and then that's how I like, oh, that's who that person is. Yeah.
And actually, we didn't know Sarah at all. She's just Lisa's sister. See, we didn't know Sarah until.
Yeah, and now she's part of the whole thing. So
Part of the tribe.
yeah.
Yeah. But she doesn't appear on camera very much. Sarah, you're there.
I got over
Yeah. make sure we
Okay, I think I need to stop broadcasting. Does anybody want to say anything else before we go?
you guys.
Thank you for the
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have fun tomorrow and the day after. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.